or tribals. As you all know, the word tribe is derived from the Latin word tribus. Tribus, Latin word. That means one third, and originally referred to one of three territorial groups that united to form Rome. And tribe is also called as aboriginals or Adivasis. And India has the second largest tribal population in the world after Africa. And as per census 2011, India is home to about 700 tribal groups with the population of 104 million. Now, how the tribal communities are characterized and classified in India. So the tribal population in India is believed to be the oldest population of land and integral part of Indian civilization from Vedic to British period. India's history has been heavily influenced by its tribal people. And there can be a multiple ways to classify them. First, on the basis of geographically. So they are mainly divided in three zones, like north and northeastern zone, central zone, and southern zone. Second, like in constitutional terms. So Constitution of India does not provide definition of tribe, but has a section on scheduled tribe under the article, I think, 342. And the other administrative classification is like particularly vulnerable tribal group, which include like example of it like Asurs, Bihor, Bondo, Paroja. Bondo, Paroja. Other way to classify them as like denotified tribes. Another way to classify them in the form of nomadic and semi-nomadic communities. Now, I'm just giving you the brief. What can be the characteristics of Indian tribe? First, cultural homogeneity. Second, lack of formal organization. Third, a communitarian basis of land holding. Fourth, living on hilly or forestry area. Fifth, a distinctive physiological view towards life. These can be the characteristic of Indian tribe in general. Now, what role do tribal communities play in representing and conserving India's distinct heritage? Like Indian heritage in the form of art and culture. Like tribe living on folk arts, such as singing and dancing. Example of it like Nuts performed acrobatics. Kalbelas of Rajasthan. Kalbelas of Rajasthan, or popularly known as saperas, earn primarily their livelihood on snake charming, dancing, singing. Tribes also represent cultural diversity. Like tribal festival have been around for centuries, and their religious significance enriching cultural heritage of India. Second, contribution of tribe in the form of traditional knowledge, like traditional medicines, water conservation, forest conservation, etc. Now, the policies related to tribal communities. As you all aware of Panchsheel approach, you all aware of Panchsheel approach, like Panchsheel approach first. Second is National Tribal Policy, or also known as National Policy on Scheduled Tribe. So it seeks to bring scheduled tribe into the mainstream society through a multi-pronged approach of their all-round development without disturbing their distinct culture. Next is reservation policy, as you all know. 7.5% reservation has given to scheduled tribe in the appointment of direct recruitment to civil post and civil services. Next is Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. Next is SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989. Next is Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Area Act PESA 1996. These are the government measures taken, or the government policies concerned with tribal development. Fifth schedule, sixth schedule, Forest Right Act 2006. Inner line permit policy in northeastern states of Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Mizoram. Now, let's move to the recent government schemes, which is important for your exam. Just write it, the recent government schemes. Write down first. Socio-economic. Within the socio-economic, write down first. Mechanism for marketing of minor forest produce through minimum support price and development of value chains for minor forest produce scheme. Second is Pradhan Mantri Wan Dhan Vikas Kendra. Pradhan Mantri Wan Dhan Vikas Kendra. So it was to improve tribal income by value adding, branding, and commercializing minor forest produce by establishing Wan Dhan Vikas Kendra. And it will promote and facilitate tribal entrepreneurship. Next is Goal program. Goal program. What exactly goal means? Going online as leaders. Going online as leaders program. And it aimed at digital empowerment of 5,000 tribal youth and women over 5 years through concept of mentor and mentees. Next is Eklavya Model Residential School. It is to impart quality education to ST children or scheduled tribe children in remote areas and to avail of opportunities in higher education and employment. Next is Traditional Knowledge Digital Library. These are the socio-economic initiatives recently taken by the Government of India. Next is administrative initiatives like special center assistance to tribal sub-schemes. So a center sponsored scheme to bridge gap between scheduled tribes and other social groups through human resource development. Next is cultural, like National Tribal Festival. National Tribal Festival. A showcase glimpses of rich cultural heritage of tribal people through unique form of folk dances, traditional skill in painting, medicinal practices, etc. Just write down few data regarding Indian tribal population. Like there are few indicators. There are ST and there are national average regarding that data. Use it in your answer for justification of your points. Like infant mortality rate among tribes, it is 41.6%. National average is 35.2. Second is under 5 mortality rate. Under 5 mortality rate, it is 50.3%, 50.3%, and here 41.9%. Next is institutional delivery, that is 82.3%, and this is 88.6%. Next is life expectancy, that is 63.9 years. National average is 67 years. Next is literacy, according to census 2011, literacy, that is 59%. Next is 73%. Poverty, global multidimensional poverty index 2021, poverty 50.6% among scheduled tribes, 50.6%, and national average is 27.91%. Use this data wherever you want to, obviously. So what are the prominent issues generally tribal communities faced in their developmental part? First is socio-cultural issues, like in the form of erosion of their identity. Second, in the form of education. So early participation of their children into work, poverty, inadequacy of educational institutions, lack of administrative policy regarding the educational institution in tribal areas. They are generally contributed to the high incidence of illiteracy and early dropout. Next is health and nutrition. So tribal faces triple burden of diseases, like in the form of communicable diseases, non-communicable diseases, and mental health problem like stress. Next is gender gap. These are the socio-cultural issues generally faced by tribal communities in their developmental part. Next is economic issues like land alienation. Next is poverty and unemployment. So these are the economic issues. Now, next is environmental issues like man-animal conflict. Next is natural resources, like with the advent of industrialization in India, discovery of mineral and other resources in tribal inhabited areas, and these pockets were open to outsiders. And the state control replacing tribal control to boost growth. Policy issues regarding implementation of Forest Right Act 2006, implementation of PESA Act, PESA 1996. Next is security issues like impact of Naxalism, Naxalism. Now write down impact of COVID-19 on India's indigenous people or tribal communities. So pandemic and lockdown had severely affected the livelihood, health, and mobility of indigenous people. Like first in the form of forced eviction. Like in 2020, Kalahandi Forest, Kondh tribe, Kondh, Kondh, Kalahandi district in Odisha, Kalahandi. Kalahandi, Kondh tribe. So in 2020, Kalahandi Forest Department forcefully demolished the homes of 32 tribal families without prior information. So forced eviction. Second is detention. So tribal have been detained illegally during lockdown. Example of it, like 20 Adivasis in Kevadia village. Kevadia village in Gujarat were detained when they were protesting the construction of fence around their village. Next is violence. Like Siwal village, SIWAL, Siwal village, Madhya Pradesh forest official attempted to vacate the encroached land by the destroying standing crops. Next is displacement. So these are the issues generally tribal people faced during the COVID-19 times. This is the you all know, you have to know. Now, in contemporary times, like in the era of globalization and the digital divide, it is very vital for tribal population and as well as the non-tribal population of India to bridge the representation gap in order to ensure appropriate legitimation of tribal voices, identities, culture, collective human rights, and the contextual issues. And as India is aspiring to be a global superpower, it needs to rethink and redefine its definition of development to incorporate the discourse of inclusive tribal development. So this can be your conclusion while writing the answer regarding development issues faced by tribal population in general. Now, let's move